What's up, hungry people? My name is AJ Dipka, and I am joined by my co-host, Michael Patrick Buckley. The mission of Hungry People is to educate, entertain, and inspire people to better themselves and enrich the lives of those around them. Today's guest, Chef AJ, has quite the plant-based resume. Some of my earliest memories of AJ are listening to her guest on the Rich Roll podcast back in 2013 and watching her star in The Chef and the Dietitian with Juliana Heffer. AJ has also made a huge positive health impact speaking at places such as the True North Health Clinic and the McDougall program. The tofu and lentils of her work can be found on her YouTube channel, Chef AJ, where she works endlessly to bring you the best minds and recipes to ensure her viewers are educated and nourished. Chef AJ, welcome to the Hungry People podcast. It's great to have you.
Thank you. I like your name, by the way.
It's a good one.
People may not know this, but, AJ is not my birth name, but the reason I became AJ was really only about 20 years ago. Before I became a chef, I was working as an activity director at a retirement home, and my legal name is Abby. AJ stands for my legal name, Abby J. And it was, I don't know, for some reason, it was a little harder for the residents to remember that, but AJ was, first of all, was like easier to remember. And at the time I was transitioning from a junk food vegan diet to a whole food vegan diet. And so I was replacing my morning Coke Slurpee with Jamba Juice. And when I would go in there, it was so noisy with all the blenders, and they'd go, "What's your name?" "Abby." What? Like, I'd have to say it 10 times, and I'd go, AJ. And then between that and the retired folks, it just be easier. So somebody gave me an AJ necklace. So I started being AJ, but I got to tell you, when I started getting chef jobs, it was so much better to be Chef AJ because you applied online and they didn't know if I was male or female. And because there was at least 20 years ago a preference for men. And so I would get to the job and, like, you could see, like, they thought I was a guy, but then I would do the test day or the test, you make the food and that's how I got my job. So if it wasn't for AJ, who knows what would have happened. But I just think it's a cute name, AJ.
It's so simple and easy. Everyone can remember that.
And nothing rhymes with it. See, I grew up like the fat kid. So Abby, I was called Flabby Abby. Nothing rhymes with AJ.
Yeah, nothing.
Right.
I mean, you can't make, what are you going to do to AJ? Nothing.
You know what's cool? If you go on, what is that MP, that website?
Urban Dictionary?
It's the Urban Dictionary. If you look up AJ, it has like such good things to say about that name. Someone sent me a bunch of the links because my name is Andre, and I posted that, and if someone looked up AJ and sent me, and it was just like, you're basically the best person ever. So.
Right. Yeah, it's cute. It's nice letters, AJ.
I feel totally left out here. I mean,
yeah, but your initials too, MP.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I do feel blessed that I have initials, but I mean, nowhere near as cool as AJ. So awesome. Hey, we just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. It's truly a pleasure to have you. And we're so excited to hear what you have to say. Anyways, why don't you take us back from the beginning here? Like, when did you first started getting into, even if you want to talk about getting into as a chef, and then talk about getting into veganism and plant-based eating, we'd love to hear.
Yeah. So veganism, I didn't have a word for it in 1977 when I became vegan, because I knew the word vegetarian. So really what happened is I wanted to become a veterinarian. Instead, I became a vegetarian. I was attending the University of Pennsylvania. I was 17. I was on scholarship. I was younger than everybody because I had skipped the 4th grade. And the very first day on my job, because we had to work for a veterinarian that was just part of the work scholarship program, he handed me a tank of live salamanders and he wanted me to decapitate them because he just did the lenses of their eyes because he was doing protein lens regeneration experimentation in this amphibian. I have no idea what that was. And I didn't want to do it because I'm a person that doesn't like any kind of blood. Like, even when I get my own blood taken, they have to either like use one of those butterflies, like for pediatrics, or I just don't like violence of any kind.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Movies, that kind of thing, even killing a bug. And so I didn't want to do it, but I didn't know how to say no at that time. If Neil Barnard was alive, man, that would have been great. He would have told me. Well, he was alive, but he
right.
I mean, there was no PCRM or internet there. So I did one salamander. And I was disgusted with what I'd done. And it was just, and I was starting to vomit, and I went to the student health center and I became an instant vegan. And I said to God, I'll never, do that again, eat, wear, harm any of your animals again, at least not knowingly. And so that was great, the withdrawal of animal products. But the problem was, is I didn't put anything health promoting in my diet. So my diet wasn't like so great then. I mean, I ate a lot of processed food growing up, as many people did, because it was convenient, it was cheap, it was affordable, which is affordable, the same thing, was addictive, it was readily available, and kind of tasty. And so I took out the animal products, but instead of putting in the kinds of foods I eat today, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, I just took out the animal products. And so that left me with Slurpees and Dr. Pepper and potato chips and French fries and, basically vegan junk food. There wasn't really vegan junk food back then. There was junk food. And so, it was great ethically what I was doing. And I didn't have any like diseases that a lot of people get that eat animal products. I didn't have high cholesterol or things like that, or heart disease or diabetes, thank God. But I did have obesity, and I weighed close to 200 pounds, in my 20s. And the worst part is that after eating a junk food vegan diet, which I don't recommend, by the way, for 26 years, I developed what they call pre-colon cancer. So I started bleeding inside from these. I had many, many polyps that my sigmoid colon was riddled with. And I learned from going to a place called the Optimum Health Institute that even though I wasn't eating animal products, which was great, everything else I was eating was pretty much a non-food item. A lot of sugar, a lot of caffeine. I didn't drink alcohol, thank goodness, but everything else was basically processed food, very inflammatory, very acidifying in the body, and not health promoting at all. And so I changed my junk food vegan diet on July 6, 2003, when I first gave up white sugar. Other things, it took a little longer to learn about oil and salt, but eventually I did that too. Actually, it wasn't really that much longer than that, now that I think about it. And ate, a whole food plant-based diet without sugar, oil, salt primarily. I mean, I don't use caffeine or chocolate or things like that. I mean, I don't think everybody has to eat as what they would think is austere as a diet as I do. But what people don't understand when they criticize my diet is that I didn't become a 17-year vegan eating the diet I eat today. I had to become a very fat and very sick vegan to do this diet. And if I hadn't, then I might be able to be moderate, like my husband, who's a vegan, who can eat a little junk food. He doesn't eat animal products and things like that. Right. So that's my journey with veganism from I'm still an ethical, that's what people don't understand. Just because I do it now for my health, and of course, because I'm not an environmental vegan. I mean, if you're a vegan, you're hitting pretty much all the notes. But my entry point was ethical veganism. And then I learned that there is a really important health component. And then, of course, we talked about the environment in the 70s. And now, of course, that's another layer for people to, another impetus, and hopefully more people will do it. So, but at the end of the day, I don't think people ever stop veganism if they were an ethical vegan. People leave veganism for different reasons. Yeah, totally. But I don't think you one day decide oh yeah, it'd be fun to torture and abuse animals. So that's why I really respect and love people that have that component in their reason for being vegan, because at the end of the day, that was the first reason. And I still think it's probably the best reason. Totally. But that said, I think for some people, you got to sometimes eat a healthier diet than you're eating if you want to have the results that you say you want. And so therefore, I don't really care what people eat as long as they're vegan, because the more I do my show, there's so many people, and who am I to say that your diet is not the best diet if it's the best diet for you? I interview I had today the chef of Hippocrates on, and it's a different version of the raw diet than some of the other raw fooders, some of the things that are included or excluded. But hey, he looked amazing. He looked 20 years younger than what he said. He says he feels great. So who am I to say, well, you shouldn't be eating that? I mean, as long as it's vegan, go ahead. I
actually visited the Hippocrates Institute last year, and it was pretty incredible, the campus. I wanted to back up for a second. What was the catalyst for you eliminating the sugar and focusing more on the foods? Was it a person or information, a book?
Yeah. So, I remember in my 20s, that was over 40 years ago, thinking that I was addicted to sugar, that I was a sugar addict. And I remember saying to my doctor at the time, who had, a diet soda on his desk, oh, there's no such thing. Because what really tipped me off was in my early 20s, I had to get this blood test called a glucose tolerance test. And for 6 hours, you drink this sugar solution, and they take your blood every hour, but you have to preload with a lot of refined carbohydrates, like a lot. And I remember, the doctor saying, eat as much, cake and candy and all this stuff the day before. And it was like, I remember going to this bakery, and it's not there anymore, in Studio City, California, called Webby's, where we used to go to get these birthday cakes. I remember like eating the whole birthday cake because and I remember like it wasn't difficult. And I thought to myself, like, this can't be normal to eat an entire birthday cake by yourself, especially when it's not even your birthday. So I always felt that I always felt there was something wrong with me. And now I realized that for a large subset of the population, refined sugar and refined flour, and of course, alcohol, is addictive. And because it's not addictive for everyone, you've got this huge faction of people that are vegan that are, they create recipes with it. And then people don't understand why when they eat them, they don't achieve their health and their weight goals. So, so I gave up sugar because, at least for me, it was a poison. And also because I couldn't stop using it or abusing it. And, it is not normal I don't think it's normal for a 43-year-old woman to start every day with a Coke Slurpee and 8 pumps of vanilla syrup and be running back to 7-Eleven all day to get Dr. Pepper big gulps. Like that's addiction. So for me, I had to break up with sugar, and like when you break up with somebody, you don't break up with them and then just see them occasionally, right? That's not a breakup. So I didn't turn to the alternative sweeteners or, all the stevia and sugar is sugar. So for me, it had to go, and life has never been sweeter without it.
Totally.
Wonderful. What would you say? Because there's going to be a lot of people who think, oh, with a cake, the sugar isn't the problem. It's because it has oil or dairy or different things. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, all those things are addictive too, really. High fat foods. And again, not for everyone, just like there are people that can drink alcohol in varying amounts and not become an alcoholic. But if you're the alcoholic, it's not you. So yeah, cake is like a speedball of addictive things. It's sugar, it's flour. I'm sure it had oil or butter. The thing is, it wasn't even vegan now that I think about it. But so I was pretty much a failed vegan for the first few years because I did exceptions for some, because there wasn't a lot of vegan desserts back then, unless I were to make them myself. Right. But here's the thing. Processed food is not something that we should be eating a large majority of our calories from, regardless of what dietary style we follow, especially ultra processed foods. It didn't exist throughout most of human history. Our species did not evolve eating it. No species did, and if you look around the world, somebody once said, whenever there's a problem, look to nature. Look at every species on the planet. None of them are overweight except for 3: humans and their pets, their domesticated dogs and domesticated cats. You never see a cat in the wild or a dog in the wild that is overweight, as long as they're eating their natural diet. And so it's, processing, I think, is part of the biggest problem in the diet. And now it's easier to be vegan in that anything that a person ever loved to eat, whether it's any kind of meat or seafood or dessert, is available vegan. Mm-hmm. So, which is, it's a mixed blessing, I suppose,
Yeah, totally.
Sure.
Hey, so I had a question, just because you brought up that you definitely prefer to be salt and oil free too.
Oh yeah, oil for sure. Salt I can handle a little, but oil is just very calorically dense, and it makes my skin. I pride myself as a 62-year-old woman having pretty darn good skin. Yeah, when I eat a higher fat diet or a lot of oil, I can feel and see the difference in my skin. Yeah,
right. Nice.
And then with salt. Yeah.
Right. And then obviously, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you. I was going to say with salt, because even though I'm slender now, I still have this addict brain, and I can tell when I like something or when I really like it. And when my food is, I like my food, I enjoy it. I eat to live instead of live to eat anymore. Nice. But when the salt gets in there, I really like it. Eat more of it, and I don't want to do that. So for me, salt is an appetite stimulant, but for me, it's a very powerful one, and also makes my fingers swell. So I'm okay without it. I don't want to say I'm 100% salt free, because it does sneak in. There's a few condiments around the house that have a little bit of salt, but I haven't added salt to my food since 2008 or cooked with it. I have it in the house if there's guests that want it, but it's not something that I like to really mess around with.
Right. Well, and then also you mentioned the sugar too, giving up that. So now when I look at like McDougall's and I look at Goldhamer's perspectives, Goldhamer, he's like no salt, no sugar, no oil.
No fun.
Yeah, right. And then you have McDougall who he's like, hey, you can add some sugar to your oatmeal, if you want to add some salt, because he wants to get people to eat the food. And right now, I mean, most people, they're just eating, like you were saying, highly processed food. Everything has sugar in it, everything has salt in it, everything has oil, and they start eating more whole foods. And it's like, what? They don't like it. They don't have any taste buds for that.
Right.
So I want to hear, like, what are your, like, who do you side more with? What do you?
This is a great question. And believe it or not, they are both right. And let me explain why.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing for people is to understand who they are. They have to know themselves. And this is a good analogy, but it's a bad analogy because it involves the use of fishing, which I am completely against, but visually I'm trying to explain this. Imagine fishing is deplorable. I don't want anybody to fish or eat fish, but fishermen do fish, and they often use this big net and they catch a bunch of stuff, not more than what they're catching. And a lot of stuff stays in the net, but the smaller fish can still fall through, right?
Yeah.
So McDougall, who wants to save the planet because he says Mother Earth is his patient, he casts this very wide net that's going to get a lot of people in, right? Which is going to be great. But there's some people like myself, and depending on who you talk to, it's 1 out of 7, 17% that identify with this concept of refined food addiction, that with that little bit of sugar, with that little bit of salt, with that little bit of flour, even though they can still reverse all their diseases, or most of them, are going to fall through the net. And so then you have Goldhamer below with a smaller net there to catch us, right? Now, so they're both right, because I always have said, do the least restrictive program you can do that can get you the results you seek. So if doing a straight up starch solution McDougall program works for you, look no further. You don't have to be Goldhamer perfect to improve your health. But if having those little bit of sugar and salt and flour is a trigger for you, or makes you not get to the weight you want, then go to McDougall Maximum Weight Loss, and then you can go to Goldhamer. Now, as far as liking the food, here's the thing. This process of neuroadaptation takes a few weeks. And it's true, depending if somebody comes from a standard American diet, and then you take them to True North, the food is going to taste terrible to them. McDougall food is going to taste much better because of that little use of sugar and salt. However, where Dr. Goldhamer has an advantage here is that most of the people that are coming to his clinic are doing a water fast. And what that does is that resensitizes the taste buds. And so they can neuroadapt faster. So after a few days of pure water, then the True North food starts tasting really good, because all of a sudden you're tasting the sweetness in zucchini and in romaine lettuce and the saltiness in greens. You see, so there's the thing. So I think they're both right. It's just, what can you do? Because if doing an SOS free, if eating the way I eat is going to make you not do anything, do the least restrictive program you can do. I think that food can taste really good without sugar, oil, and salt, if you know how to do it. There's enough talented chefs now out there that I'm going to put myself in the group: Ramses Bravo, Kathy Fisher, Shada Soleimani, Tammy Kramer, Carol Levy. I mean, the list goes on and on, that have learned how to do SOS free cooking that can make it taste good. And I always say, it's just sort of like, back in the day, they go, would like some tea, 1 lump or 2. People should be able to add their own condiments at the table. So my feeling is, don't cook with salt when it dissipates. Cook your meal and put whatever it is, the cocoa aminos or the put it on the table. Let the family or the people add it where the taste buds on the tongue can taste it. But as far as cooking with salt does not make any sense to me, or cooking with sugar or cooking with oil, because it's going to dissipate in the cooking. Let people add that at the table. The chefs call it the finish. So I think they're both right. It's just a question of what can you do, right?
Yeah, totally. That was
so
great.
So when you were starting to cut out the sugar and the oil, was it because you learned it from a plant-based doctor, or is it just because, who did you learn it from? Where did you first come in contact?
It's really funny because, McDougall had been saying for years not to eat oil. And I don't know why I either didn't listen to him or didn't quite understand it at first. But it was in 2008 when I heard a lecture by Dr. Esselstyn that for the first time, the oil thing, because I was already off sugar for other reasons, the lecture he gave was just like all about heart disease. And I didn't have heart disease, but most of my family had died from it. And he talked about that heart disease was a toothless paper tiger that need never exist. If it exists, it need never progress, and how we could be bulletproof. And so the way he explained the no oil from that perspective, it was like, oh, well, my husband and I said, well, why wouldn't we want to do everything we can to be bulletproof against heart disease? And I got to tell you, of oil, sugar, and salt, oil is the easiest thing to do without in cooking, because if you want to have that mouthfeel for fat, you can get it from nuts, seeds, and avocado. And it's baking you can do with things like bananas and applesauce. And so the oil was really quite easy to do. And what's really funny is my husband, who's already thin, when we gave up oil, like almost immediately he lost like another 7 pounds. That just shows how calorically dense oil is. And, you know, oil is kind of nasty once you get off it, because you taste it and it really, it's not very good. And you have to use a lot of salt. When you use oil, that's the other thing. Well, as long as you're using oil, you're going to need a lot of salt, because oil blocks your taste buds on your tongue. It coats it to the degree that you can't really taste the food without it. And I wish more chefs would really understand that it's expensive, number one. If you've ever tried to clean dishes with it, it's very difficult. Your cleanup is so much easier when you don't use oil. You don't have to be sitting there scrubbing and soaking your hands. And
the same can be said with animal products.
Oh,
I see
yeah,
my brother cooking with steak and stuff, and it looks like so difficult to try to clean that pan up.
It's crazy. We are so obsessed with fat. And I think it has to do with, because it's, you know, it's valuable in terms of caloric density, because it's not something our ancestors, you know, think about it. I remember interviewing Dr. Herman Ponsner, who wrote Burn, who studied like one of the last hunter-gatherer tribes, the Hadza in the Tanzania. And yeah, they eat some animal products. They don't put any oil, sugar, and salt on their food. You know, they maybe, you know, I mean, hunter-gatherers didn't do that, and because it didn't exist in nature, not in any concentrated form, you know. So they're addictive, you know. I like how Dr. Goldhamer says, sugar, oil, and salt are not foods. They're chemicals that we add to the food that fool our brain satiety mechanism and cause us to exponentially overeat. And they do in sensitive people, and not everybody. Look, there's people that eat those things and, you know, they're not overweight and maybe they're healthy, but it's not me. So.
Well, hey, it's good that you definitely seem to know your body for sure. Now you were bringing up nature, you know, and like going back to nature. And I wanted to ask you, because I feel like there's people out there who would say that maybe eating like a diet of more fruit is quote unquote more natural, or even like maybe eating more nuts and seeds. Because like, oh, the fruit, it's on the tree and it's right there for you. Is not much work has to be done. Like, how would you compare that to maybe like a natural starch diet? Because I know Lisle, he definitely believes that we ate more starch like back in the day, you know. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on like what do you think is more natural, eating like more starch or more fruit?
Well, here's the thing. The world is not natural anymore, and that's for sure, because even the fruit that exists in the world today is not the fruit that our ancestors ate. It's very, very sweet, for one. The fruit back in the day was not hybridized and it wasn't as sweet. But the way I'm going to answer the question is to tell you a gentleman that I think you might enjoy interviewing. In his name, oh boy, embarrassing. Yes, of course. His name is Richard Wrangham, and he wrote the book Catching Fire. And he knows more about this topic of what humans evolved to eat than anybody else. He started working with Jane Goodall, observing chimpanzees a long time ago. So I think that most of human history, our ancestors did not get enough to eat, and they could only eat what was available, right? But now we've learned through agriculture, you know, things like rice and things that didn't exist many, many millions of years ago. And I think if we're going to feed a world, we're going to need those starch calories, you know. I don't know, I mean, how else to do it, really. You know, fruit is very delicious and a lot of people like it. It's not my favorite thing to eat in the whole world. I think it's delicious and I love that. I eat strawberries every day, or melon in season. But to get your calories from something at that low of a caloric density, you're going to have to eat a lot more food. And that's going to take a lot more time. And I remember I listened to your story, AJ, where how you were actually able to eat less calories when you're eating that way, which I found really, really interesting how that worked. You know, but there's a lot of people, I think, again, this is where I think there's maybe some bio-individuality on what works better for certain bodies. And also there's going to be preferences, right, too. You know, I find fruit very sweet. And I think of it as dessert. And so I know that like a lot, I'm friends with a lot of the raw fooders like Lissa Maris, and they do a lot of smoothies and a lot of fruit. And for me, starch is more satisfying. Like I can eat fruit all day till the cows go home. I don't even know what that saying means and why is that. But I always feel hungry.
Yeah.
But give me a serving of rice or a sweet potato, and I eat lots of vegetables too, which by the way is lower in caloric density than food. And then I finally feel like I've finally eaten. So, I know that McDougall says historically we were starch eaters, and he does a wonderful lecture like that. But again, I think it's what's going to work for the person and what is going to be the most sustainable. When I'm traveling, I'm eating a lot of fruit because I'm sometimes not able to find the starch. And I'm actually even eating a lot of dried fruit then because I'm looking for greater caloric density when I can't find, sweet potatoes and things like that. So, but for people to say to not eat fruit, see, that's just wrong. When these people that blame diabetes on fruit or, but it's funny because even in Hippocrates, they are very low fruit there. They do not let cancer patients have fruit yet. Look at Robbie Barbero and Cyrus Kambata, type 1 diabetics that eat primarily fruit. So I don't think you can say there's just like a one size fits all, but I don't think eating animal products really is the fits pretty much anybody anymore.
Yeah, I really appreciate that message because I feel as though there is a lot of dogma even in the vegan and raw vegan world. And a lot of people are shaming each other for not following one specific way, but there's just so much individual differences, even just the way that people are living or the activity levels and stuff. So it's appreciated that you highlighted that. Now, when you started being involved and listening to Dr. McDougall and Dr. Esselstyn, were at that point, were you interacting with Dr. Lisle and Goldhamer, or does that come later?
I didn't start interacting. It's so funny. I interacted with them. I started in January of 2011, Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday weekend, when I went to True North as a patient for a week. And that's when I met them. And man, it just changed my life because basically what they taught me was something called caloric density, which I just didn't understand because I couldn't understand. I was already not eating sugar, oil, and salt. Like I was so fat. And I'm like, I don't get it. And they explained it to me, and much more than that too. So then, they become dear friends and colleagues since then. And I've learned so much from them, but at the end of the day, all roads lead to McDougall because they're teaching the McDougall diet. Yes. Right. Dr. Goldhamer has taken out the salt and the sugar, but it's still low fat, starch based. And you know what, if somebody wants to do more fruit, God bless them, less fruit, I don't care. Just eat plants that you love, and I think you're going to be fine. And again, not everybody has to go SOS free, but I think you probably want to minimize it to a certain degree. So I don't know. It's just the diet wars drive me crazy, especially within the vegan movements. We have this slew of younger vegan doctors that are now saying olive oil is good and it helps you lose weight and it's good for your heart. I don't know how many people they've worked with on weight loss, but I don't see a lot of weight loss with people eating oil. I got to tell you.
Cool. Yeah. So I feel like people, they want to eat fruits because, I don't know, maybe it passes through the system faster and, they're scared to eat cooked food, there's that, cooked versus raw. Oh, you eat cooked food. Oh, I don't eat cooked food because of X, Y, and Z, but whereas we see it, the rice and the potatoes and the legumes and lentils and all that stuff, it actually is so beneficial and powerful for the body. But I still just feel that people are scared to do it.
We've been cooking our food for a very, very long time.
Yeah, that's
why I refer people to the work of Richard Wrangham.
Yeah.
Not everyone can get enough calories on a 100% raw diet. But then, it's so funny because there's not even one kind of raw food. Or there there are some that do allow some cooked food. Some steamed vegetables and things like that, and even some. So I think that. I don't see evidence that a 100% raw diet is any healthier than, a diet that Dr. Gold, because nobody, who's going to do that study?
Yeah.
Who's going to do that study? Right. And but these people say cooked food is poison. Well, maybe some cooked food is poison, but honestly, I do not like raw broccoli and raw cauliflower. I won't eat it. So so is it better for me to not eat healthy vegetables or to lightly steam them, And also people have to realize people have different, issues. So like somebody, like I remember people interviewing like Shamiz, who had ulcerative colitis. Like for him, a high fruit diet and smoothies, these are really helpful to him, and these work really well. And for other people, maybe they just don't work as well. People there's so much GI disease right now.
Right. Yeah. Is he high carb health? Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, him.
Okay. Yeah. I follow him.
Yeah, and he's great, and it really works for him, and it really helps heal his digestion. But then there's other people with IBS and things like that just, having these huge raw salads just don't work, but steaming their vegetables could really work. So that's the thing. I think that that's just so much infighting.
Yeah, right.
A veganer than thou diet, people have gone to the McDougall program for years and gotten well. They've gone to True North for years and they've gotten well. And that's why it's kind of helpful sometimes working with a plant-based doctor, because sometimes it needs to be tweaked for you. Right. And so, yeah.
That's why I really, especially recently, respect your work even more, because even though you could easily just stay in your camp, which is the Lisle Goldhamer, Dr. McDougall, True North camp, you have all the backing and all the influence and the pull in the world, but you're still reaching out to these people like Dr. Doug Graham and these Hippocrates.
Every vegan has a place on my show. I mean, unless they're mean or something like that, because somebody's going to be helped by somebody. Not everybody's going to be so I don't like to say he's right, he's wrong. I just say what's right for me. But the thing is, a lot of times people don't even try anything to know what's right for them. I wouldn't listen to any guru unless you tried it on your own body. You're the CEO of your own body. So don't just say 100% raw is the best. If you've never, you could try it and maybe it is the best, but don't be afraid to try some of these other approaches, because how will you know, right?
I feel like that's the new direction that everyone should be or is going in, where we keep an open dialogue instead of just like, if you do McDougall and you don't succeed, it's because you did it wrong. Or if you did raw and you didn't succeed, you did it wrong. Really having all the information in an open discussion is how we're going to keep everything healthy, because it's about becoming healthier, right? It's not just about, oh, do you follow the McDougall program? Okay, you're a success.
Maybe you did it right, but maybe it wasn't right for your body at the time.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Totally. So that's the thing. I think where everybody does agree is take out animal products and take out processed food, and for the most part, highly processed food. And doing those two things are going to propel you already towards better health, when you consider that most Americans eat 92% of their calories from animal products and processed food, So it's funny because, the people that seem to, I find the raw fooders very, very nice and welcoming, because I always think, oh, they're probably judging me. I cook my broth.
Yeah.
but like, there's some of the most loving people, like Lisa Maris of Raw Food Romance and her husband, Nate, like really great. Kind people. Everybody that I've had on my show that's raw, Chris Kendall, they're just like love bugs.
Yeah, great people.
And I'm sure there's probably Milton raw people, but I just don't know who they are. Right. So I think sometimes the people that are the unkindest to me are the people that are just junk food vegans, and they're really not accepting of me because, they say things like, well, if you're not vegan for the animals, you shouldn't be vegan. And first of all, of course I'm vegan for the animals, but also you should be thankful to things like Forks Over Knives that more people became vegan for their health, because the animals really didn't care why people stopped eating them. They don't like say, well, oh, you're not an ethical vegan, will kill me. That's just ridiculous. So yeah, no, but I find it really interesting to see what works for different people. And, Dr. Baxter Montgomery, he's very high raw. He's a cardiologist. And on the healing part of his, I don't know if he personally eats cooked food and or how much, but like on the healing part of his program, he is just, it's like, I think almost 100% raw for the healing part,
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And when I spoke with
Brian
Clement, he was saying that not everyone has to stay raw or stay 100% raw for 100% of the time, but some of his patients are so sick that he finds that they might have to do it for a prolonged period until they go into different states of remission. And then it's fine to include these, really healthy cooked foods, sweet potatoes, etc. And sure, you probably could reverse most of those diseases still including those. But when you're at such a touchy point, and you're at this fine line of, death versus health or sickness versus wellness, sometimes I think it is worth going that little extra mile to ensure that you're going to feel your best.
Well, that's why people water fast, because Dr. Goldhamer gets some of the sickest of the sick, and they're on the most extreme vegan diet, water only, and they get well too,
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I want to say, like, I think we have to get rid of that message of like, oh, the cooked food is poison, the starch is bad for you, because I mean, McDougall has shown that plenty of people have healed themselves and have lost the weight and feel so much better eating more starch. And I just want to tell people out there, like, it's okay to do that, like, it's fine. You don't have to like be hard on yourself because, oh my gosh, I ate a potato, but maybe you feel good. Maybe you actually should be eating more starch and more rice and whatnot.
It's interesting because I'll be having on the show a gentleman who talks about ethical veganism or fruitarianism.
Oh, nice.
And, one of the things I notice about the people that are 100% raw often is they don't sleep as much. They have a lot more energy. And that I did not like when I was raw. Yeah. Like I like, it's not that I like the feeling of being tired, but I like I'm already that way.
Yeah, right.
That, it was like just too much. So I feel like, and this is where sometimes if you look at Ayurvedic medicine, they talk about the different doshas. I need the feeling of more, mm-hmm. I think listen to your body, people. Don't listen to your guru. The guru is probably listening to his or her body. Listen to yours.
Mm-hmm, right.
This is important. These diets where people aren't able to rest because they're so overstimulated, I think is a problem. I mean, if you listen to the work of Matthew Walker, he's like, if you're getting less than 7.5 hours, your brain is not getting the regeneration it needs, right? And I listened to Dr. Lyle's speech. I think it was at a water fasting clinic over here on the East Coast. And he gave a speech all about Matthew Walker's work and how his mother started to experience different issues because of her relationship with caffeine and dementia and things along those lines. So I feel as though that's kind of one of the things, even if you're full of, energy or stimulation, how important is it to actually feel like you need to rest and feel rested? And I'm glad that you highlighted that, AJ.
Because I mean, when I was raw, it was like 4 or 5 hours. I was just always like, it was like being on caffeine. And I think, like you say, a raw diet, which is what I use to heal my precancerous polyps. I think for healing, there's probably nothing better, but you have to stay on it forever for longevity. And also, here's the thing. If you don't enjoy your diet, it doesn't almost matter how good it is for you in the long run, because you're going to have a miserable life. Now, I'm not talking about at the beginning where you're coming off your food addictions and having to neuroadapt. But if you don't enjoy it long term, it's not going to be sustainable. So, 100%. And people shouldn't, I mean, if a raw person eats some steamed broccoli or potatoes, it's not like they committed a sin. Yeah. It's not like a vegan eating a cheeseburger at McDonald's. Not that, I mean, you know what I mean? It's like you're eating a plant, you're eating a whole natural plant, It's
still food. Yeah, it's still food. Yeah. People act like it's poison.
Right.
I don't think it's poison because there's not people that are alive still eating it,
Yeah.
Chef AJ, you're on a roll right now. I will tell you that. You are rocking it. You are really crushing it. So thank you. So I wanted to sort of not really shift the subject, but I just had a question about like your thoughts on hydration.
Well, it's important.
Yeah, right. So let's say like you have a potato and you do have a fruit. Like I think maybe one could argue that like
I'm eating a lot of vegetables, realizing I'm eating a lot of vegetables, and fruits and vegetables are like high water, 90% or so.
Right.
So I don't just sit around eating bowls of rice. I mean,
that
would be nice. No, I always have again, with difference visually by weight, but there's always at least I only eat 2 meals a day. I'm older now. I'm not hungry enough to eat more than 2 meals a day, but half my plate is non-starchy vegetables. So for lunch today, I had some sweet potatoes, but I had this huge chopped salad with it, right?
Nice.
So the salad actually was bigger in volume than the sweet potatoes. So probably by weight, I don't know. And then dinner, I'm going to have sweet potato fries with a huge amount of broccoli. So I'm eating tons of vegetables. That's the other thing. Sometimes people that eat a lot of fruit don't eat vegetables. And I can't imagine if you're not eating any greens that could be healthy if you only ate fruit, because it just seems like you would need some minerals from the green vegetables. So, and I don't know, and again, Dr. Furman, he says that he's had fruitarian patients that didn't thrive as they got older, that they got some dental problems, some mental problems. I don't know, but it's so interesting. I find it really interesting why people eat what they eat, and and things like that, and there's stories behind
Nice.
it. And and people should know it doesn't have to be forever. Like, you didn't fail if you were a raw vegan and now you're a cooked vegan, or and I think I mean, a lot of the raw vegans are eating some cooked food now, a little bit of quinoa here and there, some sprouted beans, some steamed vegetables, and they find that they feel better,
more balanced.
It's easier to travel, it's easier to be more social. So what can I tell you? But I'm fascinated by the people that are raw. I really am, because I live in the desert. It's 86 degrees now, and I'm still cold. I've got the heat on at 81. I don't know what it is. When I was trying raw, I was so cold. I never could warm up.
Oh, wow.
So I think people's bodies are different, and I don't think there's one perfect diet for everybody. But I think that, I mean, other than plants, and then you decide: cooked, raw, starch, less starch, I mean, even the ones that eat starch, they argue, well, you gotta have beans. I don't eat any beans. I haven't dropped dead. I don't eat any legumes. So I guess I'm a failed vegan. I just be yourself, eat healthy, be kind to animals. And don't
AJ, when you joined Rich Roll as a guest on his podcast, that I remember it specifically, I was laying in my living room with my feet up because it was 2 a.m. I was suffering from insomnia, and I'm listening to the episode with you two. And the big message that I got was, you were going through your polyps and your story, and you talked about water and True North and different things. And that's the moment I started taking hydration more serious than I've ever taken it. And it's not like I shifted my life overnight and fixed all my problems, but it was one of the pillars at the time. And I want to ask you, did you always focus on water and hydration, or was that something that came into your life a little later on? And as a part two, how was it to guest Rich Roll's podcast? Because he was the person that catalyzed a lot of the change in my life.
Well, I was on it twice, and it was amazing. And the second time was even more wonderful, because at that time he was doing it like in a studio, and it was video, and it was like a big deal. Not that it wasn't a big deal before. He's amazing. And I would love to have him on my show. And I actually listened to his podcast today. It was an oceanographer, really, really interesting episode. And I'm always learning stuff from him. So I never drank water until I went to the Optimum Health Institute, and I learned how important water was. I figured I was drinking liquids. I had a 28-ounce or 27-ounce Coke Slurpee in the morning and a 48-ounce Dr. Pepper Big Gulp. But then I learned that when you have caffeine, you're actually getting more dehydrated, and you need even more water. So I never drank water because I didn't like water. And they talked about how important that was at the Optimum Health Institute. And so that I learned to drink water then. And they recommended half your weight in ounces. That, I mean, as a baseline. Obviously, if you're working outdoors or very active, you might need more. But I notice now, because my diet is so high in fruits and vegetables, I don't need to drink a ton of water. I'm guessing, how much do I drink a day? 27. I don't know. Probably, I still probably am drinking 60 ounces a day. I'm guessing. I don't measure it, right? But even though I live, but yeah, water's important. You're dehydrated if your pee's too dark, for example. I mean, it's not supposed to be completely clear. My understanding is kind of like a faint yellow. But if it's like the color of like a banana, you're probably dehydrated, right?
Totally.
And so, and all things, as you get older, you always seem to wake up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. So I stopped drinking a little earlier than I used to, because it's annoying to have to wake up more than once.
Right.
Go to the bathroom, which is a normal part of aging. But if you could pay somebody to pee for you and exercise for you, those would be the two things that I would outsource.
Nice.
Have much more time in my day.
Why, you don't like to exercise, or you?
Not really. I mean, it's just, I wish it didn't make me sweat, because then I got to go take a shower and I got to do my hair. I don't hate it, but I don't love it the way people that love it. I spin for an hour. I mean, I love the effect of it, but I figure like, God, the other things I could do for that hour, but it is what it is. But I do like the benefit of it, but it's like, you have to do it every day. It's not like you can't just do it once. And it's like,
it's nonstop.
You have to really do it every day. But I know how important it is. And I think sometimes it's harder to get people to move their body than it is to change their diet.
Yeah. Yeah, I would definitely say so. Yeah, I think exercise and moving my body is definitely one of the best habits that I've built over my life. And honestly, it's just ingrained in me. It's like, no, go do this, or go work out, go ride a bike, go run, at least go for a walk at minimum.
Oh, yeah. Well, walking's wonderful. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, totally. So you said that you did spinning, you said?
I spin. I bought a spin bike. Dr.
Oh,
Lyle
nice.
told me to get one because I was going to the gym, fighting for a parking space, listening to music I didn't like with a bunch of sweaty people. So a few years ago, we bought a spin bike, and God, it was so great when the pandemic hit because we didn't have to go anywhere. We could exercise. Right. So I jump on it standing an hour a day, maybe play some Words with Friends, watch a Netflix show. And I do it. I want to say begrudgingly, but it really has become a habit because it's very rare that I don't do it. And when I don't do it, it's like, I can feel the difference in my, it's like, it really does something to your brain. It's like, does something to your brain, like good, something good.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Speaking of Words of Friends, I had to delete it off my phone because I was too addicted to it.
I know. You know what I do is I have the notifications off, and like at the end of the day, when I'm really tired and just trying to fall asleep, I'll play a few words. And I really only have one friend. I mean, other people play with me. I don't know who they are, but it's like creepy guys. They send you private messages, and it's like I won't. When they do that, I don't even answer them. Like, who are they? But it's oh my God, have you tried Wordle?
You know what? I've seen so many people post about it, especially on Twitter.
Yes.
No, I don't. Do you know? I don't even know what it is, if I'm being honest.
Okay, so Wordle, it's free, and the guy that invented it, actually, it's a game that I used to play when I was little with two people, but the guy that invented it only puts out one puzzle a day, so it's pretty hard to get addicted because you only get one chance for one puzzle a day, and usually you'll probably be able to solve it within 10 minutes. But it's really fun. Wow. I love it so much.
I'll have to try that out.
It's really fun. If you like Words with Friends, you'll probably like it.
Awesome.
So Chef AJ, you are actually going wild when it comes to your YouTube channel. I see you uploading 1, 2, 3 videos a day sometimes, or I'm just seeing you have the most videos on my feed by far.
I know. I didn't plan it, but then all these people, it's hard for me to say no. And when people, especially people that have books coming out or doctor friends, or, it's hard for me to say no to people. And I know, I can't believe that I'm getting close to the 1,000th episode. And there's a week coming up where I'm going to be doing 4 to 6 shows a day. It's going to be insane.
Wow. I know. So when you're doing this, is there anyone in the back of your mind? I know you mentioned Rich Roll. Is there a few people that you really would love to have on, or that it would be like kind of your dream guests?
Absolutely. I mean, I would love to have Jane Goodall on.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah, never mind.
The lady with the chimpanzee.
Oh, right. That you were
Jane Goodall. And she's vegan and she's older now, and I've tried her organization. I'd love to have John Robbins on. I've never got the opportunity. I know him, and I've never had the opportunity to interview him. I had Elaine Lillane. I really enjoyed that. That was the wife of Jack LaLanne. So that was really, really a wonderful experience. Who else is there?
Have you ever had Jeff Novick on?
He doesn't do interviews, is my understanding.
I didn't think so. I never see him anywhere.
Yeah, you never see him except for on Dr. McDougall's program, but it's my understanding he doesn't do these. So who else could? I don't know. I mean, there's people that I want to have on, and then you'll write them and they'll say, well, yeah, for $5,000. And I'm like, I can't pay $5,000 for a YouTube show. Sorry,
Yeah, I've messaged a few doctors and gotten that response as well. Yeah, as far as people that you have on kind of regularly, do you have some favorites? Like, I know that you always interact with Doug Lisle, and it's incredible every time.
He comes on. I'm so blessed, sometimes up to once a month. And you can tell by the views that he is one of the favorites, as is Dr. Goldhamer, Dr. McDougall, Dr. Furman, Dr. Greger, Dr. Barnard, the ones you would expect. And they're always a pleasure to talk to. And I love having Dr. McDougall on because it's like watching a thoroughbred racehorse. All I have to do is push the button, and then
he just goes nonstop.
Oh my God. He goes sometimes 3.5 hours, and I don't have to do anything. And it's so fun. And, because, he's just so sharp. People will ask him a question, and they'll go, well, if you look at my May 2012 newsletter, I'm like, I know that. So
and he had a stroke when he was 18. That's really a testament to his diet, because now he's in his 70s and he's still outworking most younger people.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's just fun. And you never know what new people I'm going to meet and chefs that I'm going to uncover, little treasures everywhere. Like I had a chef on yesterday. I'd never heard of her. And I'm like, this is like, you're amazing, and I want to get people to know. I will not rest till every vegan is on in the whole world. Nice. Every vegan must come on.
That's great. So I had a question. Are you familiar with Nathan Pritikin? by chance?
Yes. And I have his books and his son's books. And I have contacted the Pritikin Center to try to get them to come on, or one of their dietitians. They did not want to come on, but he is one of Dr. McDougall's heroes. And boy, talk about who I'd like to have on. If I could have dead people on, I'd have Kempner, I'd have Dennis Burkett, I'd have Viktor Frankl. There's a lot of dead people I would love to have on if that was possible.
Right. But that's the thing is that I think Nathan, I think he's like the pioneer of
low
like
fat,
the plant-based, the low fat, starch and plant-based movement.
Absolutely. He's one of Dr. McDougall's heroes and mentors.
Yeah. And I feel like he gets like no credit whatsoever. I mean, I know he passed, but like you just don't hear him talk about it. No, I think, are you familiar with Jeff Nelson?
Yes, he's very absolutely.
I figured I know he mentions Pritikin here and there.
Yeah.
So like that's really cool. But
I would love, I know his son is still alive, Robert, and I don't know how to contact him, but I would love to have him on. McDougall has some information on his website. I think some interviews that he did with him. And with Kempner, I just found out from Dr. McDougall on Monday that Dr. Kempner, who did the rice diet.
Yeah, right.
And that's why it's so funny when people say, fruit makes you fat. Really? Yeah. Because he reversed diabetes and obesity, giving people white rice and fruit juice. And so
I think white sugar too.
Exactly. Yeah. But my understanding is he never married, which means he probably has no children. So nobody is keeping on his work. But it's just amazing. Like all of our mentors have mentors.
Yeah. Right. Well, isn't McDougall's son, isn't he a doctor too?
Yeah. Craig. And he works at Oregon State University, I believe. He's like a professor there.
Wow.
Yep.
Well,
he's a doctor.
I think that isn't there an institute over there, the Lois Pauling Institute? Is that what
Linus Pauling? I don't know.
Linus Pauling. Yeah.
Not sure.
They actually have a phenomenal website online with like a ton of research about like vitamins and minerals and whatnot. I'm not sure maybe if he had anything to do with it, but I think it's from Oregon State. So that's just, I don't know. I'm just kind of like matching the dots and making connections here. So I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah. You had AJ?
Yeah, I was thinking that back in the day when I first found McDougall, me and my cousin, his name is Cody, we would actually call ourselves practicers of McDougalism. And we were just so enamored with all of his information. And the fact that when we found him, we were at such a tough spot because we were kind of leaning towards between all of these different diets. And I found as though that one of the most refreshing things about McDougall is he is just so clear on what his message is, and he can just hammer away on that. And do you feel as though, Chef AJ, yourself, with all of the people that you've interacted with and all the information that comes your way, do you feel as though you continuously are evolving, or do you feel as though you've just found what works and you just plug away and stick with that?
That's a good question. I think I found what works for me ultimately after suffering for so long with obesity. And it really is, like you say, basically a McDougall approach with a Goldhamer spin. It's really two sides of the same coin. But I'm still open to new information. Like I would love to do a raw food challenge. I keep saying I would love to try, but I'm afraid to fail because, as long as there's a sweet potato in the house, that piece of fruit is not going to be able to hold a candle to it with me. Right. But I do want people to have, because people say, well, why do you have this person on? And this person said the opposite thing. Is it because, like, who am I to say that is the one truth with a capital T when it may not work for you? Because, you look at some people like Karen Noller from Chicago, who's raw and she eats oil. She looks amazing. Right.
It's definitely doable.
So, the thing that bothers me though is when people do something that they know doesn't work and keep doing it. They say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing in the same way and expecting a different result. It's like for example, one of the things that I notice about every plant-based program, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, is they never involve weighing and measuring your food, whether it's a raw food or, it's ad libitum eating, right? We don't subscribe to that, but people that weigh and measure their food, they lose weight very quickly. And then almost all of them that I know gain it back. And yet they keep going back to what doesn't work. Right. They say, oh, it's the only thing that worked. And I'm like, really? Because you gained all your weight back. And so like, don't keep trying a diet that you know doesn't work for you. Try something else. You can go back to it maybe, but people say, oh, but that's the thing. It's like they go, well, Dr. So-and-so said this. Well, you're not Dr. So-and-so.
Yeah.
And maybe as a female with this genetic variant, you can't eat 4 ounces of nuts a day. And, they get, like, you talk about the hyper conscientious nut cases, and then they go, well, this doctor said this, and and they go crazy trying to meet all these things that these different doctors say.
Totally.
What I love about McDougall is he has made it pretty simple and easy to understand. It's, it's really, that's why I think it's a point of entry for so many people. And if people want to tweak their diet further for their own unique reasons, but really, honestly, if everybody ate a McDougall diet, we would not have the planetary destruction, the harm to animals, or the human health crisis that we have. It's good enough. And it's very good. And for most people, it's good enough.
Right. Do you ever have the McDougall soups that they sell?
Too high in salt for me, but we have them in the house, and my husband does have them. It's just and also I just don't love salt. I was not a salt eater growing up. So it's not about like this perfectionism ideal, like I'm so great. It's like, I just don't like it. It's just not a spice I like. I like sumac though. Have you tried sumac? That is delicious. For people that miss salt, it gives like a little sour. It's like from a berry, and it's red, and you sprinkle it on your food, and it gives this like kind of sour flavor. It's so good.
Nice. So you mentioned, go ahead, AJ.
No, you're fine.
Am I fine? So you mentioned that you eat 2 meals a day. Yeah. So how long have you been doing that?
Gosh, at least 10 years. I'm trying, because before, is a Coke Slurpee a meal? Like, did I ever eat breakfast? I don't think I did growing up. So I don't, I'm not hungry in the morning. And people say, well, if you didn't eat the night before, and I've tried that. I even skip dinner just to try to be hungry. I don't get hungry till 12 or 1 o'clock. That's just what my body wants to do. So I eat lunch between, 12 or 1, and dinner between 5 and 6. And so I guess that's intermittent fasting, and it's a long time of not eating, but it works for me. And I think as you get older, you don't have the same metabolism as when you're younger. So I don't eat an egregious amount of calories. And I'm eating to satiation at both meals. My meals are very large. I like, that's the thing, like with raw food, it's like you have this feeling of lightness. I'm afraid I'm going to fly away. I don't want to say I like the feeling of heaviness in meaning being overweight, but I do like the feeling of that I get from eating like a large amount of rice or potatoes. There's just something, grounding to me. And I just, but which is good, because if you're like a fruit meal or a fruit snack is really great when you need a lot of energy and don't have a lot of time. But man, like at night, I just want to be pounding down the potatoes. It just makes me very calm and full. I like being full. What can I
love that. Yeah. I love that.
I love that. It's a great feeling. So you've worked with so many people, especially women, when it comes to weight loss and being healthy when it comes to weight loss. Is there any general guidelines that you could kind of put out there for the women who are watching, who aren't familiar with your work, on how to approach this in a healthy, sustainable way that they don't have to like lose their mind?
Yeah, well, that's a great video to watch, by the way, on YouTube, Losing Weight Without Losing Your Mind by Dr. Lisle. I
have it all time stamped. It's so
read
good.
The pleasure trap, understand the pleasure trap and the power of the pleasure trap. And then, as far as books that'll help you with understanding calorie density, Mind, The Secrets to Ultimate Weight Loss, Dr. McDougall Program for Maximum Weight Loss. Those are things that are really, here's the biggest problem I find though with people I work with is their environment. Is they're not willing to have a clean environment. And, as long as they have junk food in the house for their husband, for their children, it's always going to call to them. And it's going to be very hard to be successful in an unclean environment. And the thing is people want some kind of magic and want to say some kind of mantra, and want some willpower, which doesn't magically exist to resist the temptation. It's much easier to remove the temptation.
Totally. Cool. Hey, so I just want to say we're pushing, I think, about an hour here. And it's been an awesome conversation. I have one more question for you, and then AJ, if you have another, then I think we can start wrapping things up here. I just wanted to ask you, what is your favorite vegetable that you love to eat? And like, if you had one meal where you're like, this is what I'm doing, or I could do this every day, what would it be?
I do eat this. such a boring vegetable to most people, but I really do like broccoli steamed. I don't know why. It's pretty, it's good. But my favorite meal is chopped salad with sweet potatoes. I have that every day for lunch. It used to be sweet potatoes and broccoli, and then my husband got that fancy bowl with the mezzalune and started making these amazing chopped salad. And I do eat it every day for lunch, and it's so delicious. And I don't eat it because I have to, because it's really, really good. And I like to have my potatoes first roasted and then air fried, not air fried to like chips. Like I'm not talking crunchy, but just, it gives it this nice, I don't know, just every day for lunch. And I have to fight my little dog off because it's, who knew dogs like sweet potatoes, right?
Right.
He fights me for the Hana yam and the Murasaki sweet potato. I'm not eating the orange ones, by the way. So yeah, it's my favorite meal. And I just love it so much. There's nothing else I want to eat other than that. And I would probably eat it 2 meals a day, except my husband likes a little variety. So we have something different for dinner.
Nice. That's great.
A lot of people are going to think that switching over to healthier or plant-based is going to be boring. And you did address how the taste buds will change and all these things. But I think having a variety and a lot of delicious recipes to turn to is going to be very, very helpful in that transition. What would you say is either your most popular recommendation or your like a fan favorite when it comes to a really delicious recipe?
Yeah, there's a couple. And it's interesting. You mentioned boring. I don't understand how food is boring unless you're using it for excitement. And if you get away from that paradigm of looking to your food to entertain you and medicate you, then food can't be boring. Now, food can be bland. It could be other things, tasty, tasteless. But how can food be boring? Because that's not what it was intended for, right? So I always, so the fan favorites I'm told are the black bean mushroom chili and the red lentil chili. And those are things that people like with Super Bowl coming up. Those are things that people feed to regular people and they like them. So those two are very, very popular. And then any dessert recipe I ever made pretty much is popular because I'm still using, dates and things like that. But for entrees, those two have always been hits with the masses.
That sounds
perfect.
great.
We'll try to find those recipes and make sure we put them down below for those of you guys listening who would love to try that out.
Totally.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Chef AJ, I just want to say in closing that your energy is next level. I did not know that you're
going
to come on here and blow us. You're going to blow us 20-year-olds away.
That's why I can't just eat fruit, because then it would be like no.
But it's been it's been almost a decade now since I've been listening and reading into your materials, and I really do honor and appreciate your work. You're still doing unbelievable things, and I just see you growing in potential as you continue to do this. What an amazing experience I had talking with you. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was so nice to meet you guys.
Yeah. Once again, like AJ said, thank you so much. It's been an honor. Your energy, it really is truly incredible. I'm so impressed, and I'm actually motivated to have that kind of energy when I get there. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. If you came this far, much appreciated. We hope you guys enjoy the episode, and definitely leave us any feedback and comments. Thank you so much. Stay up, be great. Always keep it 100, baby.
And just remember to eat food, don't starve, and stay hungry, because a hungry life, that's what it's about, man.